Hello, I'm Jeremiah Gill, and welcome to episode 49 of the Something Newsy podcast. Today, Sheree, Dom, and Valeria will be joining me. We'll be discussing how to balance mental wellness with work, school, and life.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the second episode in this podcast. It's part two. I hope you had a chance to tune into the first part because it was really good. If you haven't, I recommend going back and listen to the first part before you get into this. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this podcast right here.
Another thing that's kind of important to mental health that people don't talk about a lot is food is medicine. What you eat can make you feel bad and crummy. And this is what I learned, when I was in an unhealthy marriage and things were really out of whack in my life, the main thing, diet is huge in weight loss, but walking 45 minutes every day, between diet and walking, I dropped 35 pounds in 2 months.
Yeah, that's
I was dedicated.
Yeah.
I was dedicated. But, moving your feet, getting those endorphins, but food. So there's foods that we eat that increase inflammation and pain and mucus in our body. And when you eat these things, it makes you feel crummy. So physical health is important. Mental health is important. What you eat is important. So what you put into your body, if you're eating a lot of bread, starches, and carbs, that's going to clog your mind and it makes you feel crummy. And then, sugar, alcohol, and all this stuff that's addictive, it has negative effects on your body. If you think about the things that go into pizza, the cheese, the milk, we weren't made to have milk. And so it creates mucus and allergies. So between the bread, the milk, and the nightshades, any vegetable that's red, it causes acid reflux. Mm-hmm. So when you're eating these kind of things, it put your body in a status where you feel inflammation. And so when I started cutting out, going on an allergy elimination diet, under my doctor's advisement when I was going through these changes after my divorce, I got mental clarity. I felt good. I started realizing the food that I put in my body. So when I shop the store, I shop all the outside. I shop the proteins, fruits and vegetables, the fresh food, not the processed stuff. So you want to avoid stuff high in starch, stuff that's deep fried and stuff like that. Have you guys seen benefits to positive, negative benefits to the things you eat and how they affect your physical and mental health?
Most definitely. I think for me, I don't like to say vegan. I'm on more of a plant-based diet.
Okay.
So, I do a lot of fruits and vegetables. But as of late, since, like I said, moving back to Cali and everything, I haven't been able to cook as much. But when I do, I make sure I get all of my, I do my beans, my fruits, my vegetables, and things like that. But I do notice, I ain't gonna lie, I like potatoes. You feel what I'm saying?
I love a potato.
It's starch, bro. It's starch.
I'm telling you, but I love potatoes so much. It's just but you do feel that kind of slugginess afterwards, and then also even with rice too. I try not to eat too much rice, but
rice noodles.
Yeah, right. It's good though. You feel when you're eating it, you feel that you feel good in the moment, but afterwards you kind of just feel really, really sluggish. So I'm actively trying to eliminate all of that stuff now, like the potato. It's hard, what I'm saying. I went to Trader Joe's the other day. They got the everything bagel chips now, and it's crazy.
All right, yeah.
So just trying to eliminate just the bad stuff out of the diet now. So
I mean, there's not much for me to add on top of what you guys said. I'm just gonna bring them back to the same word. I think a balanced diet is what we're looking for. I might have a little pushback here and say, I don't believe starches are bad. And I think anything in moderation can be good. Like potatoes, you can eat, of course, too much potato, but you can also eat too little potato. You can have too much or too little of anything. A balance, of course, because, there's one thing if you're too strict, that will have a psychological consequence, and then you'll start tighten up psychologically, get tight, and then there's going to point you can't tighten anymore, and you explode, and that's when you start to pig out, and that's when things start to collapse within each other. So I would say, have your chips once in a while. Have your fucking
cheat day, man. It's cool.
Have your cheat day.
I mean, Sunday is my cheat day.
Have your cheesecake once in a while, But of course. But it's more like, you can't have your cheesecake every day. You can't have your chips all the time, 2-3 times a day. So, I mean, of course, we all struggle with that. having access to a lot of like delicious restaurant foods and things like that. In and Out, it's so cheap. Oh my god. And so yeah, food wise. But I would like to. I don't know if we're gonna go in the next question. I wanted to add one thing that I don't think we've touched on, and maybe we won't, but just a little quick aside is that we've spoken about, so if you want to look at a living thing, you can separate it into three, I think he mentioned it, into a physical, the mental, and the social. Like you can separate it, all living things into those three categories. So we've spoken about the physical, we've spoken about the mental, but we haven't touched upon the social, and so I think that's another a thing that affects us that, so it could be like relationships and maybe a lack of connection. So in the United States, we're having a loneliness epidemic.
Might have something to do with social media and smartphones and how people are disconnected because they're connected.
Yeah,
Yep.
not for real, not for real.
That's just one of the many reasons of why in the United States there's a loneliness epidemic. And so I find the social aspect as well, it needs to be spoken about. I don't think we should have a complete understanding of health and life. And so, of course, not just, exercising and moving your body in the physical sense, not just taking therapy and meditation for the mind, but also the social, like going out and socializing, going out there and
100%, dude.
finding the people who you really connect with. Because I found in my own personal life, like, how much time I spent socializing with people because they were convenient, because I worked with them, because I lived with them, because they happened to be there at the same party as me. Instead of thinking about, I should be spending time with people who I connect with the most. And maybe that person I connect with the most is not very convenient. Maybe I have to drive 30 minutes. Maybe, I have to go find them. Maybe I take a hard look at my social life and I'm not really that deeply connected with anybody, because over time you grow apart, and so you might have been close at one point, but over time the interests diverge, and now you're not as close. But if you don't pay attention to these things, at first you're like, oh, I have a social life, but then 5 years later, you look at yourself and you're like, man, I don't feel connected with anybody. I haven't had much romance in so and so years, and so I think something also to consider is the social connections you have in your life. How close are you to your friends and family in a true sense? Not like, oh, I spend time with them all the time. That's fine. But how truly connected are you to them? How excited are you to see them? Like, when you speak to each other, like, does the conversation get really good and you just feel so engaged in what they're saying that you're like, I don't know who else could give me that kind of feeling where, like, I don't know who else where I would go to where I would feel like this. Like, this is where I belong. I belong here with you because I feel so engaged in what you're saying and so interested. And most people don't stimulate me in this way. And so I'm glad I'm with you and not with you. And so that's something I struggle with. And I've had to start over, essentially, my social circle, because I realized, like, I have a bunch of friends on my contact list that I can text, but I don't really want to talk to them that badly, and when we do talk, isn't that interesting. But there's certain people when you're like, man, this is so great when we're together, and it's like, why didn't I focus on you? But I think that's just like another thing we should talk about.
That is really good. I'm gonna bump the question back to you, and then we're gonna move into this. You actually hit it. It's really good because we want to talk about relationships, boundaries, not dating, human relationships. The importance of healthy relationships and boundaries, and maintaining our mental space and not giving our power to people who are, what do you call them, like soul-sucking vampires who take away your energy. But before we hop into that, did you find any, you kind of mentioned like the physicality, how it was, but diet, food, do you find like food was beneficial? Like, and before, I want to answer your question real quick. Like, so I like to do carb cycling. So if I do a high intensity workout day, then I do carbs, and on my low intensity days, then I do lean fats. Because I do paleo, so I try to keep myself on a cycle where I have lean fats on some days and I have carbs on some days. So if I'm gonna do an intense workout, then I'm going in with the carbs. So I mean, balance, figuring all that kind of stuff out. Like, I say, cut and reduce versus like just eliminate. But that's something you got to figure out for yourself. What was your experience with like using food to kind of manage your mental health or like feeling good about yourself?
So Valerio, when you had said that when you get too strict with your diet, it just leads to all kinds of negative consequences, I can relate to that because I've done that. So that is why you guys know I came in here and was like, I just had a quarter pounder with cheese in the car because I did, and I enjoy that every once in a while, right? But I realized that when I do that too much, it creates a brain fog, right? And then I try to get back to my roots, but do it in a healthy manner, and eat healthier. And then also, I think green foods is like a superfood, you know? And I realize that when I am eating healthier and I'm incorporating my greens, that brain fog is gone.
Yeah.
So balance, eating healthier, but a balance is important.
Yeah. Well, and then you go through a breakup and you start, eating all kind of junk, and it messes up your whole thing. And you're like, let me get back on it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so socializing is important. As humans, it's what we need. We become more disconnected, closer to being put in the tubs in the matrix where they just plug us in. And how can we be intentional about plugging in with people and not plugging in online, and setting boundaries and having healthy relationships? Because when you're going through those hard times where you're resetting your life and you're cutting off and you have unhealthy relationships, like it's a lonely place. It's like a death in the family. Now I got to reset and build new friendships, new relationships, and I got to build that back up, so people might be going through a hard time. Like, what about healthy relationships and setting boundaries have you guys learned?
One of my all-time favorite sayings that I apply to my life is no is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. I don't have to give you anything more than that. And then also, I think that life used to be such an event, before we got so in touch with the internet and social media. We had no choice but to talk to each other, right? And 100%, to call each other on the phone. And we just don't do that anymore. So I try to unplug myself from the internet as much as I can and give myself the opportunity to meet people and talk to people that I can establish healthy relationships with, whether they are platonic or romantic or wherever that goes. But I at least give myself the opportunity to do that. And then also too, I think what helps me is that it is okay to walk away from what no longer serves you, be it person, place, or thing, right? And so I think that I've also come to a place in my life where I am more intrigued with what is coming than what has gone. So I try to, even if that is or was a big part of my life, what sense is it for me to stay there when it's gone? Or I have realized that we have run our course, right? And again, that could be platonic or romantic. You can mourn a relationship, whether that is platonic or romantic, two things can be true. But it is important to know that when it is time to go, when something no longer serves you, you have to do two things, and you can do those two things at the same time, which is move and mourn collectively together. But you have to do it.
Oh, I can go on forever. I can go on forever for this. But yeah, I think one of the hardest things that I find people who struggle with this is of course, growing up, and as you live life, you start to collect friends and things like that, and then you start to get complacent, and then you don't really pay attention to like your social health. I find that most people don't. I find that most people, as long as they have friends and have people they can call, that's enough. They don't think deeper in the sense of like who they're calling and what is the quality of the relationship, not just the quantity. Like, oh, I have 4 or 5 friends, so I'm not lonely. You could be, and we all know Robin Williams, right? He had everything. He had everything. All the money, all the fame, every possible. He had all. Like, if he was missing something, he had all the opportunity. He had all the resources to get it. And even so, he still chose to kill himself. And partly I think that's because, you know.
And he brought joy to so many people.
I mean, I can give more examples.
Mind-blowing, but yeah.
Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain, the guy from Linkin Park. Anyways, I could just keep going. And so I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of not seeing the full picture of socialization. It's like, yes, quantity matters. Yes, having, 4, 5, 6, 7 friends, cool. But you also need quality. You also need, out of those 4 or 5, not everybody's equal. You can't tell me everybody you know is your best friend.
No.
Right? And so we have, from one end of the spectrum is an acquaintance. Someone you know, you get along with, but you're not deeply connected with. And then you have your best friend, somebody who you'll talk to whenever you want, somebody who you can call in your deepest, darkest moments. They'll pick you up anywhere you are if you need it. And I find that's the harder thing to find.
Yeah.
It's finding those close friendships. And according to the research I have seen, part of this loneliness epidemic is they asked, how many friends do you have? And they're like, 3 or 4 friends. How many close friends do you have? And it's worse in men than in women, but generally they say 0. I have 0 friends. But most people aren't willing to take a hard look at their lives and realize that, I have friends, but I don't really have any close friends.
Yeah.
And so it's to come to that realization, to confront that is very scary and very painful.
Yeah.
So that's why I think most people don't even bother looking inward or taking that hard look, because they know it's going to be painful. They know it's easier to just pretend everything's okay when things are clearly not okay. So if finding encouragement from others to do that, or maybe I don't know how this works, but courage works where you can courage from others, right? But also you have courage in you. It's not like you're devoid of it. And so if people can find the willingness to do the scary thing, the hard thing, and then when you go through it and you come out to the other side, you're like, holy cow. And so, once you actually, let's say you do something that you were so scared, and you're like, man, this stuff was very painful. But then when you go through it and you come out the other side, you're like, oh my God, like, I'm glad I did it. Like, I'm glad, and I know it was awful going through it.
Oh, yeah.
But man, if I didn't do it, I would be in the same place. Yeah, you would. I would still be in the same place as I am now.
I am today.
Yeah, and if you wouldn't have walked through the darkness, you would have never gotten to the light. But nobody wants to walk through the darkness. Nobody does.
Appreciate the light more.
Not only that, that's the only way you'll get there.
Right?
Unfortunately.
Right?
And so I think it sucks in this country we don't get a lot of support, emotional support, or just support in general. Because like I said, I could keep going about the culture. Like, we're the most individualistic country in the world. There's no other place
day one, but
There's no other place in the world where people are expected to take care of themselves with the least amount of help possible, which goes against like almost every medical, scientific, philosophical theory out there. So unfortunately, as Americans, we have to contend with a very hyper individualistic country. You better pull yourself by your own bootstraps, because I did it, so why can't you do it? Kind of BS, because none of us are equal. So this is ridiculous thought to have, like, because he could do it means I can do it. You can't prescribe that on a general basis. So unfortunately, if you're willing to step through your darkness and try to find support, I think a lot of times the mind will under and over predict. So they're like, man, this is gonna be horrible. But then when you actually go through it, it's like, it wasn't as bad as my mind was telling me it was gonna be. But you will only find that out once you experience it firsthand.
Human, the ability to overcome and adapt. We are built with this beautiful ability to overcome and adapt. I've been through some really horrible things in my life, but I can say I'm at a place that I'm thankful for them, because I'm stronger and I wouldn't be who I am today if it didn't happen. It's a beautiful thing.
And I would say, I really don't know where to start. I guess I'll just kind of like dive in with it.
I just dropped it on you.
For me, I think the way I view relationships come from just like you said, everything that I've ever experienced in my life, just to share, whether that's my dad committing suicide when I was 3 months, not having my dad around. So that kind of like, what I'm saying, you kind of, and then I recently found out about it, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And, you just kind of had those thoughts like, well, damn, did I do something to make that person kind of like not want to be here? So for me, I think that has really, truly defined a lot of my relationships. I am mortified and scared of people leaving my life, for real. And that shit really scares me. And sometimes that makes me grasp on to maybe things I shouldn't grasp on to anymore, and it's a difficult situation, and I don't know, I'm trying to get out of it. A lot of times with me, I try to get the upper hand on people, you know what I'm saying, and it's a bad way to go to look at life, you know what I'm saying, like, oh, is this person gonna hurt me? Because at the end of the day, we're supposed to live with love and light, you know what I'm saying, and everything should be in love, but it's really hard sometimes. And I think as we get older, I'm 27, I'm on, it's not that old, but
younger side.
On the you know what I'm saying, but you're getting up into that age where it's harder to form relationships because of the generational gaps that you may be going through. If you're born, it's some kids that, I got my siblings, I was born in 97, my siblings were born in 2001. It's a huge gap in how we think about things, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of hard to.
They were raised with the umbilical cord of smartphones.
For real.
Like me, when I grew up, we had to be out till the street lights came on, and we were like, life was an adventure. Like we were out there doing things, and like I feel like my childhood was like a movie. Me and my friends are going out doing stuff, getting in trouble, living life vicariously, and then like my kids are plugged into the matrix.
For real. And I grew up in that kind of like zone, right? I kind of grew up in that zone where like I came in on the latter half when computers were starting to come in and everything, but then again,
but on another level.
On another level. But then I had your experience too when I was outside till the streets light came on. So I think for me, I'm still struggling with the boundaries and everything, and just trying to figure out how to navigate that in life. So I know that's in my next journeys in life, that's something I need to work on and just kind of not be so fearful on and stuff. So yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and finish this out. Everybody want to hit like a last thing they want to say on this? Give their piece out.
Me personally, I think because we're in such a hyper individualistic country and there's a stigma to ask for help. I think the most important thing for me, I feel like most people need to hear is like, please ask for help. It doesn't matter how. I don't care.
It's not weakness, it's strength.
It's not weakness, it's strength. Yeah, exactly. I don't care how you do it, whether it's like calling a crisis line, finding a forum online, calling your parents, anybody, anything. But try to understand how asking for help and needing help and having a support system is fundamental. So if you don't have it, you better get it.
I would say for me, just be kind to one another. I think that's very important in this day and age. It's a lot of judgment, a lot of people feeling less than because of what we see on social media and what's portrayed, and just the media in general. So I would say just be kind to one another. You never know how your words can affect somebody, and I think if a lot of people understood that, a lot of people wouldn't do the things and say the things they say to people. So yeah,
personalize the person you're talking to.
Now, most
not
definitely.
So distant. We're so bipolar in our culture right now.
You're a mirror. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I think you're a mirror of what the world is. So if you got to get yourself right first inside, you know what I'm saying, your inside is a reflection of your outside is a reflection of your inside. Yeah. So just get yourself right. Just be kind and be kind. Yeah.
I think for me, I will leave you with this. Something that I was told a few years ago, and I don't even remember who said it, but I remember what they said, and that is, why do we become the very things that we can't stand? And I think about that when someone makes me angry or someone treats me poorly, and then I in turn want to treat them poorly, or I might want to go outside and treat someone else poorly because I'm having a bad day, and I revert back to that and I say no, because that's not who I am. Right? So never, ever, ever allow what has happened to you to taint you. So continue to be a good person and ask for help, because not everybody is a bad person, and there are people out here who will love you and who will support you and who will help you.
I mean, I feel like saying amen. Like we in church or something. That was some good stuff. I want to leave on one note that I believe in the philosophy of cognitive emotive therapy, that thoughts lead to feelings lead to actions. If you want to change the way you behave, you change the way you think, it changes the way you feel. So if you want to take power over your life, take power over what you think. It will impact how you feel. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And I want to thank Sheree, Dom, and Valerio for participating in today's episode. Thanks for listening to Something Newsy podcast, and we'll see you in the future here.
Yeah. Woo.
What?
That was good.